Hi everyone, and welcome back to Health Kick with Dr. K. Today I am joined by guest Mystery Furtado, and we're going to be talking about, the topic is diabetes, and so I figured she was the perfect person to bring in and to talk about this topic because she is the founder of Type Diabeat-it. And if you've never heard of that, we're definitely going to expand a little bit more of what that nonprofit is and what type of services she offers and what inspired her to get this organization going, because we've talked previously about diabetes. It's a massive topic, so every year we kind of bring it back just to talk about different aspects of it. And so this year I wanted to have somebody that has the background but also can help you with finding resources and what to do once you've been diagnosed with diabetes. So thank you so much for joining us today, Mystery. I really appreciate you coming in and taking the time. And so I just wanted to start it off with, what made you decide to start this organization?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. K. It's always a pleasure. What made me start Type Diabeat-it? I will start off by saying that diabetes is a cause that's very near and dear to my heart. I have lost my paternal and maternal grandparents to diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, at the age of 8, I was giving insulin to my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I was so brave, but I was the only one at home with her. And my aunt, who was my grandmother's daughter, wasn't at home that day. And she needed her insulin shots. And I was the only one at home. So I said, I'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I became like her personal nurse at the age of 8. So for me, I grew up being very much aware of diabetes, its complication, how it affects the entire family. My grandma slipped into a diabetic coma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one who ran to the doctor. So where I grew up in Belize, and luckily a doctor lived on the other street. So I ran over and the doctor came over, but she passed from complications. So I'm very passionate about diabetes and how do we change the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I migrated to Canada about 10 years ago, my sole purpose was to do support work for Belize, because in Belize, diabetes is top 3 cause of death. And I never thought that Canada needed mystery, right? I was like, there's enough freedom fighters and good doers in Canada. Like, there's no need for little old me. Like, I grew up in a little country that has the whole country's population of London, the whole country's population of London. So I didn't think what I had to say was valuable at all. So for years, that was my thing. And then I got a job as a clinical educator at a hospital. And during that role as a clinical educator, I realized that I was wrong, that there is so much for me to do in my own little backyard, London, because while it's not necessarily a lack of resources, but it's very much a lack of consistent information and cultural competency.
Yes.
So I got the board to adopt a twofold mission, whereby we wanted to start to support, starting in London, those with diabetes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's absolutely welcome, because, when somebody has a diagnosis, it can be very overwhelming for them. And so they don't know what to do with it, right? Like, even for naturopaths, we love to be in the pre-diabetes state, like catch people before it's full blown, right? And so even with pre-diabetes, like, now that the knowledge of diabetes is getting a little bit more out there, people get really scared. And I think that fear is valid. And like what you said, there's a lot of complications that come with it. So
Yeah.
what do you notice when people come to you? Like, what's their biggest thing they need help with?
The biggest thing is the management, and like I said, the lack of like consistent information around diabetes in Canada. Diabetes, 1 in 3 Canadians is diagnosed with diabetes or its related complications, right? So it is a very big issue for everybody. But I find that within our community, for multiple reasons, and you look at racism in health, systemic barriers to access, right? Things that are not always intentional, but just the precedents being set in how resources and services are tailored, right? If you look at the health module, health books, not created with people of color in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, fact, you find that how diabetes manifests in our community could be slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And I always want to start off by saying that access is not equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is this, hovering, when you talk about diabetes and racialized group in certain circles, there's like, oh, but we have this and we have that, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's there, but who's accessing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to any of these, health clinics and diabetes support services in the community, you go, how many people of color comes to this post or to this service?
Mm-hmm.
Not many,
Right.
but the numbers are high,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing? So you find that most people that I interact with, the biggest thing is like not having the proper information about diabetes. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing we do culturally is I can't eat, and we start losing weight,
Mm-hmm.
right? So most people that I've met, yeah, I've lost like 100 pounds in this short period of time because I was recently diagnosed and I don't know what to eat. And, they told me I can't have this and I can't have that. And they've told me to adopt a Mediterranean diet or a Greek diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when we look at the ACB community and we talk about food, there's this like elephant that walks into the room when we talk about African and Caribbean food because they think we just eat exotic meats, right? All we
Mm-hmm.
eat is colorful tongue and tail, and right? They don't, people don't know that we have our own form of healthy food and ground food, and Africa has over 100 grains and one of the longest historical evidence of people being plant-based and vegan actually originated in Africa. So
Mm-hmm.
I find that the idea of food and culture is something that a lot of racialized groups face. I was just at the market, I'm at Food Basics the other day, and I heard this lady talking, and I had to go up to her because she was just like, she's in like so much stress. She's like, I'm diabetic and I don't know what bread to get. And she's like
Aw.
freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked over and I was like, I refrained from anything medical, not because I don't know it, but I have not sat my licensing as yet. So I'm an internationally trained nurse, and she's freaking out about bread. So
Mm-hmm.
I walked over and I said, well, the important thing is that the bread has grains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's white or brown, you want a lot of grains, variation of grains. And the recommendation is one slice of toast or half, but it depends what you eat in a day. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
really? I was like, yeah. And I was like, let me show you. You can also have cassava, you can have green banana, which has a resistant starch. So the green banana won't affect your blood sugar. And I started to show her alternative to just like flour that she could consume.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because one lady was, Middle Eastern or ethnic, and the other lady was white.
Mm-hmm.
And the white older lady did not care for my information. But
Mm-hmm.
that's because she has a family doctor. She
Mm-hmm.
has access to a diabetes nurse.
Right.
But you find that racialized groups don't have access to a family doctor. And 9 out of 10 times don't have a diabetes nurse.
Mm-hmm.
They've been diagnosed, discharged, probably told to follow up, and the wait time to see a diabetes nurse is about 8 weeks or more to
Mm-hmm.
get in to see one, right?
Right.
So you find that within our community, again, even though there's all these services, how many people that look like me have a diabetes doctor or specialist or nurse that's supporting them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we just waiting on Mystery to, flash on the scene, the nursing.
Ooh.
But yes, no, I completely understand that for sure. And also too, what you're saying about like the different foods, right? Like, we're taught Canada's food guide for one, right?
Yes,
And
we
then
are.
we deviate to the Mediterranean when things are going sideways. Um, and then and then you're right. There are foods like that are just like homeland foods that people are just like, well, what do I do now? Because this is how I cook. This is how I know how to cook. And I'm not just all of a sudden going to eat like XYZ thing that I've never heard of.
And that is exactly what happens with diabetes. So it's a cookie cutter model that it's a Canadian food guide approach. So you go to the hospital, you're diagnosed, and let's talk about gestational diabetes, very quickly. I have a friend, she had gestational diabetes. She goes to the hospital, they give her a paper, right? And they say, so and so, go home, eat this, right? She picks up the paper and she's like, I don't eat like this. She chucks the paper, she's like, I'm not gonna eat this. I was like, listen, okay, you got me, we're gonna work through this because there is some truth behind what's on this paper, but we got to put it into cultural context, right? And again, gestational diabetes high in Black Indigenous women, but yet the services and the research tells you plain and straight, we don't have enough data to properly do anything for these two at-risk groups. And there is where you see it, because you see kale and maybe you don't eat kale, but you can find kalalu, right? You can find other things that are equally high in iron, things that have fiber and protein, things like okras, right? But that's not on the paper.
Right.
So, change is hard for everybody, anybody. Doesn't matter what color skin you are. So our role as type diabetes is that whole cultural representation of competence is saying our culture is healthy. Here is how we tailor it, right? Because we have that disconnect from food and culture because we migrate, right? And our foods, specifically for those in the Caribbean, has been influenced by slavery and westernization. So many of us don't even know what our ancestors ate because somebody else told our story. It's not because we ate all these feet and tongue. It's because that's what we were given when we were enslaved. And because we're talented, we added spices and herbs, and now it's tasty and it sticks. Like, oh my gosh, like oxtail, all this thing, right? And no offense to oxtail. I'm just saying, before slavery, that's not how we ate. That was the leftover of the animals that they didn't want, and we never had how to store it, so they gave it to us, right? So we have a lot that we have to unlearn, be willing to talk about. We need to address the fact that the Canadian Food Guide is not for a lot of us that now live in Canada, and we have to support existing programs to, kind of have them call to action and say, why are certain people not accessing your services, and how can we work together so that these people can access your services? Because you guys have the resources and the budget to do a lot more.
Which is, you need that for sure. You need that for sure. So then what would you do? Let's say somebody is recently diagnosed with diabetes. They're like, listen, I just saw Mystery talking about this, and they just show up. Kind of, how would they connect with you and kind of get started with getting some help?
So what we do is we have a few programs. One of them is like our food literacy and our cooking. We have those in about 3 to 4 different locations in the city.
Okay.
And I work collaboratively with community partners so that we can encourage those that look like me to access certain services. So one of them is London Intercommunity Health Center. I work directly with their diabetes nurse and the registered dietitian. So we teach people how to make healthy, culturally competent recipes. So the last session that I did, we did a cassava fries, which is a better alternative to potatoes. So if you really want to fry something, get some cassava because there's some fiber in there. And it tends to, the sugar release is very much different than a regular simple starch. And we did a Ghanaian red bean stew and a avocado mango salad. And everything that I mentioned is under $20. So we specialize in very, cheap, because again, there's a misconception that healthy is expensive, right? So if you have 6 kids, why am I going to buy cherry tomato when they need to be full, right? So we need to, empower our community to say, hey, it can be filling and healthy and affordable. Right. So everything I just mentioned was less than $20. And that fed about 15 participants.
Wow.
Okay. And people had seconds. Like there was no leftover. Beans is not expensive. Right.
Yes.
And it's a Ghanaian stew. So it has like some tomato, beans, peppers, cilantro, you name it, you make it good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a healthy, filling meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of food literacy, food recipes. We are volunteer led, so I'm not going to lie, it may not be as easy to access our recipes as yet,
Mm-hmm.
but we are recruiting more volunteers, and we recently got funding. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
able to disclose everything as yet because I have to wait for the government to, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be having our
Amazing.
own space on a full-time basis to do cooking demos,
Mm-hmm.
revive our YouTube channel, have these recipes available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also do cooking sessions for youths,
Mm-hmm.
and that is done through LUSO
Mm-hmm.
and Boys and Girls Club. I
Okay.
go directly into the bully area,
Mm-hmm.
and then wherever LUSO is running their programs, I run cooking sessions with them.
Mm-hmm.
They've been out of JP2.
Mm-hmm.
And then our fourth location is going to be working with RCCG Church.
Okay.
I will be running some cooking sessions there as well. So a lot around food and culture and portion controls and recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Our other program is our community garden, which is now a greenhouse. So we have a
Yes.
greenhouse at the Western Fair, and we are growing free ethnic vegetables. So we have two versions of the amaranth kalalu. We have okras, we have lettuce. Our first harvest of lettuce went into the Bully area already. We have habaneros, we have cilantro, thyme, we have radish, we have a whole bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually launching an app,
Mm-hmm.
and the app is going to be a community resource. It's going to have cultural produce, nutritional values, recipes, and how to grow them.
I love that.
And this toolkit was developed in collaboration with Brescia College. So I have hard copies, and we're going to have electronic copies available for download on our website and also through the app.
Nice.
And then our third program that we kind of marry along with the garden is our food box program.
Mm-hmm.
We ran that successfully during the pandemic. We were giving out 80 food boxes a month.
Mm-hmm.
We had to pause that program because of funding.
Right.
So hopefully now that because we're growing our own food, we can offset the cost of the food boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can relaunch our food box program. So hopefully starting in September, we should have, our goal is about 150 food boxes a month,
Mm-hmm.
especially after our fundraiser this year. So that's what we're planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then our last program is a curriculum. We
Mm-hmm.
actually have a Afrocentric food literacy curriculum for elementary school, high school, and adults.
Mm-hmm.
We ran a pilot project with the Catholic School Board this year. So I went into a grade 4, 5, or 5, 6 class.
Mm-hmm.
I had about 26 students, and I taught them about plantains and
Mm-hmm.
cassava and couscous and chickpeas. And it was a great 7 weeks for myself and for all the students.
Oh, amazing. Good. So, okay. So it sounds like there's different spots around London where you guys are located and people are
Yes.
able to drop in and do that. And then what's the cost involved in, let's say somebody wanted to do the cooking class?
The cooking classes are all free
Okay.
because
So
it's
there you
all
go.
through collaboration. So the adult session is London Intercommunity Health. I am working on a location in Argyle for September.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice would be follow us on Facebook and so on Instagram. Join our mailing list so that whenever we launch a new area for cooking, you can be notified. And again, because of amazing collaborations, these are all free. The ingredients are all provided.
Mm-hmm.
And adults, London Intercommunity Health. For youths, you look at Boys and Girls Club and LUSO. I normally always post the flyer and the dates in advance. So if you want to send your child, they can come to one of these, outpost locations. And if you're an adult, London Intercommunity Health Center.
Good. Perfect. And that I love that because honestly, like the accessibility is a huge thing, right? And just like
Yes.
you said, if you're cooking for a big family and especially with how costs of things, like we always talk about the cost of things increasing, but
Yes.
this is like astronomical lately.
Yes.
So people they are living on a budget and trying to figure out how to make things work for themselves. So that's great.
And I get that because I'm a single mom. I have 2 boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I have all the knowledge, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's not practical, right?
Mhm.
So don't beat yourself up. There's been nights where I buy pizza for my kids because I'm tired, right?
Mhm.
we live in a fast-paced world, so we need community. We
Yeah.
need easy, simple, practical resources that limits barriers, because something about our community that people don't talk about enough is that we tend to blame our community for not supporting, for not coming out to things. But
Mhm.
we forget to talk about what is preventing our community from coming out, right? And
Mhm.
I can speak from experience. It's not because I didn't want to support a community event. I didn't have the extra 20. I didn't have the bus pass. I wasn't always driving. I
Mhm.
live on housing, like we
Mhm.
have so much going on that prevents us from supporting. And our community is so diverse. We have those
Mhm.
that have already integrated really well, who are
Mhm.
doing well, who have, good jobs, who have access to transportation. But
Right.
then we forget that a lot of us have still not fully integrated into the Canadian system.
Mhm.
And if you look at the research that's been put out now for the definition of a new immigrant, it can take 5 to 10 years for you to fully acclimatize and adapt to a whole new country,
Yeah.
right? So I do like to talk about those things because we have a ripple effect when we talk about health and
Mhm.
barrier issues. So that is why it sounds crazy, but we work with our community. We work with community partners so that we can bring the services into specific areas, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's how we're in Bully. We're working on limber loss. I just have a partnership with Northwest Resource Center.
Mhm.
I'm going to be demoing about 12 recipes for kids and youths for the
Mhm.
summer.
Nice.
So now we're targeting the whole Limberlost area. So anybody in the Limberlost area, you want to send your kids, look out for our flyer. Follow Northwest Resource Center.
Mhm.
Their director Amani, she's great. We have an ongoing partnership. We're going to be doing kids and adults
Mhm.
between now and next year. But I'll be there for about 2 months,
Good.
running cooking sessions.
Perfect.
And again, it's all free. Send your kids. Just
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
follow what's going on.
And then, so you said a lot of the programs are volunteer led, right? So,
Yes.
what are some opportunities for maybe high school students that want to volunteer?
For high school students that want to volunteer, there is social media, there's flyer creation, there's physical work at the greenhouse, physical cooking hours, right? So
Mhm.
I'll be working with Luso as well in the Bully area doing a summer breakfast program.
Mhm.
So come out for some authentic, cultural breakfast options.
Nice.
So shout out to Michaela and
Mhm.
Angie, those are who I work with at Luso.
Mhm.
So there's opportunity Thursday evenings to start to prep the recipes for Friday.
Yeah.
There's, Friday for the next 2 months, you can help us give out food
Mhm.
and learn a little bit about your culture. Because, a part of what we're proud of is that we're the representation, because a
Mhm.
lot of our kids that were born here don't want to eat our food
Mhm.
because of the stigma,
Mhm.
right? They get bullied. My son
Mhm.
was being bullied at school for cultural food. He'd come home and tell me, "Oh, mommy, can you like not send me with chicken with bone in it?" I said,
Mhm.
"Yeah, when you start paying these bills, then go tell me what kind of chicken to buy." And I had to work a lot with him because
Mhm.
he's like, "Oh, there's a goldfishes group, and
Aw.
they don't like coconut." And I said, "Do you see coconut tree here, son? Like, they don't even know what it tastes like. It's not their
Mhm.
fault. They get the
Mhm.
garbage that's like shipped here.
Right.
They have no idea what fresh coconut tastes like." So you can, choose to educate them, or you can choose to just let it be and understand that you can only control so much. So
Mhm.
now my boys are 11 and 9.
Mhm.
We don't have that problem,
Mhm.
right? But I still have a lot of friends that their kids are going to school with sandwich, and no offense to the sandwich, is quick and easy. But
Mhm.
part of health is cultural preservation,
Mhm.
right? So we need to reconnect our kids back with their roots so that they later on don't adopt this fast food life,
Mhm.
because mommy and daddy is working 2, 3 jobs. So we give them fast food,
Mhm.
but then as they get older, they tend to carry these habits. So that's why I do a lot of youth empowerment, because that's a very good age to empower and help them to prevent and learn about healthy foods and have that pride within them to say, hey, I can go and buy like couscous, or I can have my chickpeas, or I can have,
Mhm.
boiled green bananas or cassava, right? Or an okra stew, right?
Yeah.
So it's, what we're doing, I think, has a lot of impact, because
Mhm.
we're not only empowering through diabetes prevention and management, but also empowerment, and empowerment targeting the real roots, right? Looking at accessibility issues, looking at the education around it, the representation around it, right? Creating safe spaces with bigger organizations, right? And I think that is huge because, like I said, they have the resource, they have the budget. So collaboratively, we have a greater reach because I can't fix everything, right?
Right.
But if I work with, London Intercommunity Health Center and LUSO and Boys and Girls Club, together we have even, bigger of an impact on those that, are most vulnerable.
Definitely. And then you were mentioning the greenhouse is in Western Fair. So
Yes.
Western Fair is big, but like where is it
Yes.
located? Like Agroplex or?
Yes, so we're behind the Agroplex building. We're sharing a plot of land with the Growing Chefs.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be there from now until September. Send us an email, a text, a message on social media to arrange a viewing.
Nice.
I do put out my schedule for the week because sometimes I'm there at 9 o'clock watering because that's when I can get to the site. But I do have certain days like Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Wednesdays that are like set hours that I rotate because I have Luso coming in. I got 2 really cool volunteers from St. Thomas. They helped me to harvest yesterday. So shout out to my St. Thomas volunteers. They drove all the way here.
Yeah.
So I felt special because they drove so far to come and volunteer with Type Diabeat-it. So look out for those dates. I tend to post them for the week as to when you can drop by for when I'm already there. If you want a special viewing and a special group to help, just send me a message. And we are actually going to be growing into an even bigger space.
Okay.
So we just signed a 7-year lease agreement for 1.5 acres of land in the city.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to be needing more hands because we're going to be planting more food.
Yes.
So I want to acknowledge Cardinal Fine Cabinetry, wonderful human being, him and his wife. They have land at the back of their business that they're not using, and Type Diabeat-it, that's going to be our new home.
Wonderful.
So we have 1.5 acres to grow all them kalalul and okras and anything ethnic. We're going to try some ginger and learning about garlic, and we're going to be running some pickling sessions. So I just learned that you can pickle okras.
Okay, that's a new one.
Boom, right?
Yeah.
So my volunteer from St. Thomas, she's a homeopath.
Yeah.
And you see, life is just so divine. You just do the work and you just meet amazing people. She's a homeopath and she pickles okra.
Very good.
So we're going to run a session in the summer to teach people how to pickle okras because I think that is super sustainable, affordable, because okra is not on the cheaper end, right? Out of everything that I mentioned, okra is one of the more expensive greens.
Yeah.
Because you tend to buy them in a little tray or by pound. So okra is not that, affordable per se, but we're going to make it work. And if we learn to pickle it, then it's even more affordable because when you buy it in the store, it tends to go bad pretty quickly. And then if you freeze it and then cook it after it's frozen, it kind of loses its quality. So I freeze my okras when I buy them, and then I put them like in stir fry for the kids and, put it into, grind meat pasta. So it's like they have to eat it. Yes, I'm one of those moms.
The tricks of the trade.
Yeah, not negotiable. Just get the food. So pickling it is, I think, a great way to probably cut some of the slimy texture that sometimes kids don't like, right? My one son, he's always like struggling to swallow it sometimes. I find it funny.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be so great.
Yeah,
for a lot of us that want to use okra but struggle with the texture, right? So I'm really excited to learn how to pickle okras.
Good. And so before we wrap up, tell us about your fundraiser that you have coming up.
Yes, so this is our 4th year. I have been sending emails saying it's my 3rd year. I'm sorry, people. I need to fix that. My partner, he's like, it's 4th. And I was like, oh my gosh, I sent like 20 million emails saying it's my 3rd annual. This is our 4th annual 5K run, September 9th at the Springbank Park. And we are fundraising for our food box program because we're volunteer led. We are fundraising to, our goal is 150 families. So we're encouraging the community to come out. It's for everybody. You don't have to be diabetic, pre-diabetic. You can come for someone that you know. We're going to have face painting, corn on a cob. And it's just for the whole family to come out. We typically have a nice warm up, to start. And then you can walk or you can run. And all proceeds go to our, all the programs that we run. And I want to shout out to A&B Print. They're one of our sponsors this year. So they're sponsoring all our beautiful signs. So shout out to Adam Garba and team. They accept all my rush orders. So I want to publicly thank them for tolerating me because sometimes I'm very late and they've never disappointed. And I'm late 9 out of 10 times at my orders. So shout out to Adam and team. So we're going to have some nice signs in the park.
Great.
We're looking for more sponsors, volunteers, and community come out. Let's talk. Let's do our 5K. I started to train for my 5K, but then I paused. So I will resume. I still have 2 months.
Yes.
Because I was attacked the last time. Like, you didn't run, mister. I was like, well, I'm coordinating, sir. How can I run and coordinate at the same time? Right? They're like, yeah, but you didn't run. You're talking all this. So Mo, if you're watching this, I am preparing for my 5K. So I will run. And I want everybody to see me and record it so nobody can say Mission didn't run. So leading by example.
Good.
I still have 2 months to go.
Oh, very good. So thank you again so much for coming and telling us about Type Diabeat-it and your programs and everything that you're offering for the community here. I mean, honestly, it's invaluable information that you're putting out for us. And I honestly can't speak highly enough about Type Diabeat-it and, of course, Mystery, and being the founder and leader and showing us exactly what the path that we need to go for helping our community and those that are being affected by this, really. So thank you guys for joining us, Health Kick with Dr. K. Next month, we're going to be talking about health advocacy and informed consent. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for having me. It's great.